But today, welcome to the town hall. We do this every couple of months just to stay in tune with what's happening in the real estate industry and up to date with the contract changes and the compliance changes. And we are going to have a fun day today. The first part is going to be some of the contract updates. And then the next part is going to be talking about what's in and out of the real estate industry in 2025. And then the flow of working with the buyer and the flow of working with the seller. So we really want to be interactive and have some audience participation in what we're talking about. But we'll get the boring part out of the way first so that everybody can participate in the next part. Okay, I saw this. I follow a lot of people on social media and different groups and real estate groups and all kinds of things. And one guy that's kind of become an influencer, his name is Tristan, and he wrote this the other day, and I thought this is just so true. So I wanted to read it to you guys. He said, I want everyone to be a real estate agent at least once in their life, not for the money, not for the flexible schedule, because we all know that that's fun, and definitely not for the glamour that you see on Netflix or social media. I want you to try it because it's hard, because it tests everything you're made of. It's those mornings when you turn up before dawn, driving across town, putting up open house signs, knowing half of them might get stolen. It's sitting alone in somebody's beautifully staged home during an open house, waiting. 3 hours pass and maybe 2 people show up, both just curious neighbors, but you smile and share your knowledge because that's what you do. And if anybody saw Tessa's video the other day, it's so funny because she was at an open house and she was like doing handstands and waving the flags out front to see if somebody would come by. But then it says it's watching people you've known for years, people whose children you've watched grow up, people who you've supported at every community event and fundraiser, watching them list with someone else without even a courtesy call. That hits hard, really hard. You pour your heart into this community. Sometimes it feels like you're giving everything and wondering if anyone notices. You watch your kids' soccer games with your phone in hand because a client might call. You miss family dinners for last-minute showings. Your life works on everyone else's schedule, not yours. But here's the truth about real estate that keeps me going. Those late-night calls from a first-time homebuyer in tears because they're scared to make an offer. You talk them through it. The elderly couple selling their home of 40 years, you sit with them for hours as they tell you stories about every room. The single mom who didn't think she could ever own a home, and you work tirelessly to make that happen. When I look at my colleagues who've stuck with this profession, I don't see flashy cars, designer suits, shoes, purses, or vanity metrics on social medias. I see people who keep showing up, keep serving, keep caring. Not because it's profitable, but because it's who they are. That's what real estate really is. It's not about the houses. It's about the human moments, the hard ones, the beautiful ones, and all the quiet, unseen ones in between. And this is exactly why I want everyone to be a real estate agent, at least once in their life. Because in this profession, you learn what it truly means to serve others before yourself. These aren't just lessons for real estate, they're lessons for life. Because in the end, that's what makes not just a great real estate agent, but a great human being. Isn't that good? Yeah, I thought that was spot on. Okay. The IABS is changing a little bit. So it is not actually going into effect until February 10th, but we wanted to bring this to you beforehand so that when it does go into effect, you have enough time to update all the places that we need to update the IABS. So Beth Ann made a checklist of all of those places, your dot loop templates, your email signature, and your email signature goes below the links for the IABS and the Consumer Protection Notice. So if in your email you have it under your signature, that's not compliant. It needs to be highlighted above your name and your salutation or your picture that we add as a signature. The links need to be above that, okay? If your MLS email signature, this is you log into the MLS and you go to edit your account information. When you send save searches through the MLS, there's a place there that has your signature. It needs to be updated there also. Your Lofty email signature line, your social medias. The social media, you should have it as a post that's tagged to the top or in your bio or your information somewhere that it's easily accessible that people can click on the IBS and the consumer protection notice. And then if you have Linktree, that's it.
They're supposed to be getting rid of highlights, so if you put it in your highlights, you won't be able to do that anymore, so you're gonna have to switch to a link in your bio instead of using that anymore.
Okay, the link in your bio. So that's a lot of places, but we want to make sure that we're compliant. So after February 10th, we're going to have people in the office that can help you if you don't know how to do this, but I've also added it to the hub. Let's see if I can go there real quick. Where it says resources for NAR changes, I added the instructions for adding the IABS and consumer protection notice to your signature. So it gives you step-by-step on where you go to, you fill out a document, you download the document, you upload it into Google Drive as a PDF. It gives you step-by-step how to do that. And then it has a share link. You have to make the link public, and then you copy the link, and then you hyperlink that. So if y'all are lost, it's in the hub, so you can go find it there.
Have the link, it just has the hyperlink, but when you click on it, it doesn't go anywhere.
Right. And the consumer protection notice, I made the hyperlink in that instructions that goes to the one that you can just use that link because it's all the same for everybody. There's no names or anything on it. So the one that we're going to be changing is the IABS form. And it is going to clarify to the customer that any brokerage fees are not set by law and are negotiable. So that is what is going in all of the contracts everywhere since this, August or November, or whenever that settlement happened. The possible adoption date is February 10th. Like I said, they're having a final meeting about it. Most likely it's going to be adopted, but if something changes, then we'll meet next week and I'll tell you that it didn't change, but it's most likely going to change. And then I added your instructions to the agent hub. Any questions? Are we all clear on all of that? It's super easy change. I mean, it's a little change, but it's going to cause us to do a lot of like updating all of our stuff. Okay, I want to go over some of the form changes that happened that we went over in December because I'm still seeing a few people that are unclear about some of these things. And always we're here to help. Robert's here, Tanya's here, every single person in this room. Allison, anybody that's in this room, if you have a question, reach out to each other before getting under contract and then having to go back and fix these things later. But here, the first one is about the survey. The survey now has an option to come with a T47 affidavit, which is typically what we've done in the past, where the affidavit gets signed by a notary saying that nothing has changed to the structure of the property. Like you haven't added a pool, you haven't added a patio, you haven't added a bedroom, anything like that. So that's an affidavit that you can take and get notarized, or you can use a T47 declaration now that does not even need to be notarized, but you add your birthday. So that's how they are saying that since you put your birthday on it, then it's more valid. So there's two options there if you don't have, but if they do change anything, if they do add a pool or add any structural work to the property, they will need to get a new survey for that property. And then the T47 is not necessary because it's a new survey. That's okay. The next one is, we just had this happen about the mold remediation. If the property has been remediated for mold, seller must provide to buyer each certificate of mold damage remediation if issued under 1958 occupations code during the 5 years preceding the sale of the property. So if the owner knows that they've had mold remediation, they have to tell them about that now. So you have to get information about that to the buyer, knowing that there's been remediation work. Good. And then the required notices, it just spells out, that we have to, we have to provide some different notices like about utility, water, drainage, and public improvement. If I'm going too fast, stop me and ask me questions, but we did go over this a couple months ago. But this one is the most important change, and this is where I see most of the questions are paragraph 12. I know Tanya teaches contracts every month, and she does a great job in explaining how to communicate these things with your clients. But if you're confused a little bit, we're going to keep saying it until we have 100% confidence in what this paragraph means. So the 12A1 says seller shall pay all of the following expenses. So just know that 1 includes A, B, and C. So all of the expenses that are listed in A, B, and C, the seller shall pay. The differences are the A is the releases of existing liens, including prepayment penalties and recording fees, releases of seller's loan liability, tax statements or certificates, preparation of deed, and brokerage fees that seller has agreed to pay. They added that, but what form would clarify the brokerage fees that the seller has to pay? The listing agreement. Yeah. The form that goes along with what the seller is agreed to pay for brokerage fees goes in the listing agreement. Okay. Then the second one is B, the following amount to be applied to brokerage fees that buyer has agreed to pay. So let's say you have a buyer's rep agreement with a buyer and they agreed to pay you 3%. Well, now in the contract, you can put 3% in this contract that now you're requesting that the seller pay for that compensation. If they don't agree to this, the buyer is still under contract to pay your compensation, but you're requesting that the seller pay the compensation in this contract. We're confused? I know I get a lot of like blank stares, like I lost. So that would be, okay. And then the amount that you put in B needs to match the amount that's in your buyer's rep agreement. If it doesn't, or if the seller doesn't agree to pay the amount in your buyer's rep agreement, then the buyer will come up with the difference, or you'll need to amend the buyer's rep agreement.
So,
Yes.
so say the buyer's rep says 3%, for example, and the seller says, I'm only gonna pay the buyer's agent 2.5%. You would put the 2.5% in here, and then you would work with your buyer to get your other half.
Yes. Yes. Any questions? Any more? Nope. Okay. Now, if we're going to go into detail of this, so it'll be clear in a little bit, but if your listing agent is agreeing to pay a cooperating broker fee, then you don't need B because you're going to get paid by the listing agent. So in the listing agreement, the listing agent must have put that their fee is X%, and then the fee that they're going to pay the other broker is Y%, which is a portion of X%. So that's covered there. So now that is called the agreement between cooperating brokers. And that way you'll get paid from the listing agent, not the seller. At brokerages now, they have decided that they're not going to allow some agents to do a cooperating brokerage fee. So there's no Y fee, which is a portion of X. They charge X and that's all they charge. And if the buyer's agent wants to be paid by the seller, they would put it on the contract. Make sense? So I know EXP does this. So if you have a listing that's EXP, the agents may not all know that they can't do that anymore. Just know that if it's an EXP deal, you're going to have to include your compensation on the contract in order to get paid for by the seller. Right now, today, I'm still, either way is fine, because I feel like there's a conversation that you can have with your seller of why it's important to offer a buyer's agent compensation. And as long as they understand that and are aware of what they're paying, who they're paying, then it's fine. But as we go along in this real estate world, we'll see what changes happen with that. But right now, you can either offer a portion of your total listing compensation to the buyer, or you can do it this way and just do your compensation and have them request compensation on the contract. Got it? Great. C is an amount not to exceed blank to be applied to other buyer's expenses. C is what we remember of the old contract as seller's concessions. So if you're asking the seller to provide concessions to lower the interest rate or whatever it is, or closing costs, that goes in C. And you add A, B, and C up for the total amount that would be the seller's compensations at the end of the day, or seller's contributions. Good? Are you still awake? Okay. And then it also spells out buyer shall pay the following expenses, and they added that broker's fees that buyer has agreed to pay. So in your buyer's rep agreement, it is in there, but if the seller agrees to pay those fees for the buyer, then it is in B. That's the most confusing part of this whole change, is just understanding how to fill in these blanks. If the listing agent is offering a cooperating compensation to another agent, then you wouldn't put them both here. You would be paid either by the listing agent or you would be paid by the seller, but you wouldn't put a cooperating agreement fee and then a fee here too, because then you would be paid double. I mean, you could try that, but I don't think it will work. Okay, any questions before we go on? Yes, of course.
So 2 things. One, for the contract cost next week, it's not going to be the traditional contract cost. It will be more like pitfalls and issues. We're definitely covering this. So if you're not understanding it, please come so we can get it very detailed. You can ask all the questions and do all the things. And then also Texas Realtors has this handy dandy little flyer. And it's how to use paragraph 12. It's 3 pages long. So
Exactly.
It's a very confusing paragraph. So if you don't know where to find this, please come see me and I'll be passing this out at class.
Awesome. She's the best. We were in a class yesterday, or a meeting yesterday, and Tanya was talking about some education she took, and she was like, why wouldn't everybody want to go to that class? Like, everybody needs to know about this. I love it. All right, let's go to the next thing. I just explained that. The other part is this, on the bottom of page 10. Okay. Pursuant to previous separate agreement, we would just write a number there of what we had agreed to in another document, but people would misinterpret that this would be part of the contract. It's not. This is just saying the listing broker has agreed to pay the other broker. So if there's a cooperating brokerage, if X is going to pay Y, you would put what the Y amount is in here. But it's not binding. What's binding is the form between compensation agreement between brokers. That's what's binding. This is just info. So you can't just change it. Like if the cooperating agreement between brokers says 2%, you can't put 3 there and then expect to get 3 because you don't have another paper to back up what it says. Easy enough? I just get a lot of questions on that. All right, third-party financing. I just wanted to remind you that now if someone terminates the contract based on financing, they're going to need a copy of the written statement from the lender setting forth the reasons for the lender's determination. Okay? We used to just be like, dang it, well, that stinks. Now they have to get it in writing, and that is awesome. Yes. And then it also highlighted a very clear sentence that says that the property approval that the buyer may terminate this contract on or before the 3rd day before the closing date. So what that really means is if you have a closing date of the 10th, count back 3 days, 9th, 8th, 7th, and terminate on the 6th to be 100% sure that you've terminated on or before the 3rd day before the closing date. Okay? Based on property approval. That means if it doesn't appraise right, if it doesn't, the lender has stipulations that people can't come to an agreement with, but normally it's the lender's underwriting requirements, or it's the appraisal, or it's not insurable. And that's happening. There's some properties that are not insurable. And if you wait until the day before closing and say, oh man, it's not insurable, so we can't buy the house. Well, you lose your client's earnest money and face possible lawsuits because of that. Okay, so 3 days prior to the closing date, let's say 4, but prior to the closing date is when you can back out of a contract based on property approval.
Property approval,
Right.
financing.
Financing approval, that is you have to back out prior to the number of days that you put in the first paragraph. So if you put 21 days there and you're on 20 days and you haven't gotten financing approval yet, you better have a conversation with the lender and the client, because if they go to 22 days, they can't back out because they're not approved. And how bad does that stink? They just lost their earnest money and they can't buy their house. Now they're really upset. Yes.
Rest still has this other cool thing to where if you switch the lenders, you have to wait 7 days to be able to close. And so that happened on one of the buyer's agent was having trouble with their lender, decided a week before closing to switch lenders, and then couldn't close on closing day, had to close the day after. And so they were all upset, but you know, that is
Yeah.
the rest.
Yeah, she said that if you switch lenders, you have to wait at least 7 days before you can close according to RESPA rules. That's good to know. Okay, ready to go to the next thing? This is just the amendment, and it just highlights the things that have changed in the contract, and most specifically that paragraph 12 that has 1, A, B, and C. That is what that's changed, and then it just made the other numbers different. Not a big deal there. But that's an amendment, so if you go back later after you have done your amendment to request repairs or an amendment to negotiate price or whatever the amendment's for, then you would need to go in and update that information on number 4. Okay?
And that's gonna happen a lot because sellers are waiting to see if they're gonna pay the buyer's agent fee based on a lot of the closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
So when you amend for, hey, we need $1,500, that seller may renegotiate what he's paying you as a buyer's agent, and that's the amendment. You've got to make sure that that changes on that amendment form. It's a jive now. That's okay. We can keep up.
Okay, here's the flow. This is on the hub too, so if you have questions, then you can definitely go there. But I changed it a little bit so I can show you. So when you are starting to work with the client, you have a substantial real estate conversation, you have your IBS sign. Then you have your buyer's rep short form if you're just opening doors and you're not sure if you want to work fully with that client or not. So you get your short form or get the long form sign because you are sure that you're going to work with them. You know that that's going to be your client. Go ahead and get the long form sign because once you are working with them fully, you're going to need the long form sign anyway. Short form is for people that you don't know that just want to look at a house. You're like, okay, great. Here's the short form. It's just showing that I am allowing you to look at this property and it doesn't put us under any type of relationship for a long period of time, whatever the time period and stuff that you put in there. Okay. We should all know that by now. We've been studying that for a while. Then working with the buyers, you've got to do the long form. Now you've got scheduled showings and you need to contact the listing agent to find out what's happening. What's going on? Is the listing agent offering a compensation agreement between brokers? You have to ask that first before you submit a contract. I wish Andy was here because Andy had a deal that a buyer's agent submitted a contract for one of his listings, and Andy told the person that yes, we are offering compensation between brokers, and they were like, great, and they submitted the contract and did not submit the compensation agreement between brokers. And I was like, Andy, I know you're going to do the right thing here, but you don't have to because there's no form that says that you have to pay the other broker because they didn't submit that form. That's the biggest thing I want you to realize about today is if the listing agent is paying the buyer's agent a compensation, or the listing broker is paying the buyer's broker, get it in writing before you submit the contract. Because once you submit the contract, verbal and text and all that doesn't help. You could be really, really mad if this happens to you. And it happens all the time.
So what happened? Did
He did the right thing. He's like, hey, are you sure you submitted everything? And they were like, what do you mean? They're like, well, I didn't see a compensation agreement between brokers. And before we move forward, I want to make sure that you're covered.
listing agents and other brokers may not do that for you?
Correct.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Other listing agents, their seller may say, guess what? You're gonna save this on the closing costs because she didn't, or he didn't submit that compensation agreement.
Right.
I decided I'm only being nice for about a year.
Right.
And then if you don't know after that, then I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a big problem. Yeah.
What would Tanya do in a year?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can't fight for you then because you don't have the paperwork. If you have the paperwork, I can fight all day long. And I will. I love that. I mean, I don't love it, but I do it. Yeah, I need the paperwork so I can win. The other one is compensation between broker and owner. This one's kind of going by the wayside unless it's a for sale by owner. And the for sale by owner says that I'm willing to pay a broker to bring a buyer or whatever, then you can get that compensation agreement there. But it kind of goes in the contract now if the seller is going to be paying the broker. So it's not as important as it was a couple months ago to get that form signed before submitting a contract because now it's in the contract. So the only time now you're going to really use that is if it's a for sale by owner. Okay. And then if you do use that for the for sale by owner, then you need the IABS for the seller as well. Now we're going in, now we're like, okay, I got the compensation agreement. I'm going to submit an offer. We need to request the seller's disclosure from the listing agent. If it's not on the MLS, but check the MLS because it's super frustrating if they put it on the MLS and then you call the listing agent to get the seller's disclosure and you're like, well, I didn't look. That's just like, they took the time to upload it for you so that it's there when you're ready to get you have to look up tax records and all the CMAs and do all of that stuff anyway. Go ahead and download the seller's disclosure. If it's not there, then request it from the listing agent. Prepare your CMA. You want to do that every single time before you even start with the offer. Because how do you know how much you're supposed to offer and how are your clients informed on what they're supposed to pay for a house if you haven't even done a market analysis? Because I can tell you right now, a lot of agents don't price their properties correctly. And you can see, like, I had a situation a couple years ago where I had a new build and the new build was 450,000. This was probably 7 years ago. And the other ones in the neighborhood sold at most for 400,000, but this one was 450. So my clients were like, I'll pay 450. That's fine. They didn't know. I go, oh, hold on. Let's do market analysis and see what that is. And I was like, why is this one 450 and all the rest of them, it doesn't comp? And they're like, yeah, the builder just decided to do a price increase. And I was like, well, we're going to offer 400 because that's what it's going to comp out at. So I saved them $50,000 because I did the comps because the builder just decided to do a price increase. And if I wouldn't have done that, then that would have been really bad when they came back later and found out their neighbor paid $50,000 less for the same house, right? So you have to do the CMAs and it's required for compliance. We had to go to court or do a dissertation, what's it called? Deposition. We had to do a deposition last week based on pricing of the house and what it sold for. And we had to provide the CMA. So if you don't have it uploaded to your compliance and I don't have the CMA, then I can't provide it for you. So it's part of our compliance. And that's the reason when we have, legal issues that come up. But then it's up to your client. They're informed. They know that according to your comps, it's worth less. Are they still willing to pay what the seller, because that's really what the market is. It's what someone is willing to pay for the property. That's the market. That's why it's like this. Because sometimes people pay all crazy prices and sometimes they want to not pay much at all, depending on all the things. But if your clients know you feel like it's worth this, but here's what they're asking. And if they're okay with that difference, they might buy it anyway. Yes. And don't believe the other agents because they will skew it to make their side of the story look really great. You need to do what's best for your client. All right. MLS for report, buyer's document. All of these are the same. Wire file, general info, inspector info, 1 to 4 contract, all addendums included in the contract. And then the amendment to the buyer's rep if you need to make an amendment to it prior to closing. Contract accepted. Now we've got all the amendments, the survey. I added the T47 affidavit or declaration, and then the signed seller's disclosure, and then closing the final closing disclosure. So this is a roadmap that will keep you in line with all the paperwork that you have to do. Broker Mint is our compliance. Loop is a resource just for you to use to have easy access to e-signature. If you want to use that resource, you still have to upload it to Broker Mint for us to have a file so that we know like what's happening with the transaction. Several times I've received termination of listing agreements and there hasn't even been a listing file in Broker Mint open. So I'm like, that's not good. So as soon as you get a listing agreement, even if you do the paperwork in Loop, go ahead and download it and upload it and create a file in Broker Mint so that when, if for some reason you need to terminate it, we can get it done quick. I can't terminate it without the paperwork, and then that'll make the sellers really mad. So we don't want to do that. We want to be able to terminate it as soon as possible if we need to. All right, then this is the seller side. The only thing I changed on this one was the T47 affidavit and declaration right here. So it was the same from before. So I was like, wouldn't it be fun to do like an ins and outs of 2025? Like, you know, we always talk about, oh, you should make videos and you should do this and you should do that. And so I was like, okay, personal branding. Like I started making a list of things that I feel like are in for 2025. And then I started making things that are out, where the first one was just in my brain was like, the ends are like you telling the story of the transaction and how your clients, how you met or what funny thing happened during that on your socials. The out is posting a just sold site at the title company that says, hey, yay, look at me. I'm so like, I just want to like not see those anymore. I love that. And it's cute, but the story around it and the people and bringing in the how did you help them? And, you know, so that's out, but the story is in. So I was like, let's chat GPT this. And so I did. And the first thing that came up said personal branding, authenticity, and niche marketing win over generic strategies. AI powered marketing. Y'all, AI is, if you don't know, you better know. This is like going from having a flip phone to a smartphone. Like it's going to be that big of a change and make your life so much easier in a lot of ways. Smart CRM, we have AI driven stuff in Lofty. Kevin, tell them the story that you did. Sorry, you're eating. I just get so excited. I'm so like, I can't wait to share all this. When you did, like, you were driving somewhere and you didn't have time to do a market thing and you were going to help Brian.
So, yeah, I did my CMA on a house, and then I was on the drive there to meet Brian to look at his new listing. Fabulous. It's amazing. Everybody needs to go see it. It's the coolest place ever. But I was on my way there and I was like, okay, I haven't sold a lot in this neighborhood. Sparked up ChatGPT and what's going on around the address in North Dallas, and what's his actual neighborhood called? What do people are attracted to in this neighborhood? And it started shooting out all the information about that specific neighborhood that just gave me every backstory I needed about that neighborhood specifically. And then I was like, all right, well, let's see what you come up with. Give me a CMA on this property. And I just compared it with mine to see if it matched, and it hit like real close to what my numbers were. Wow. And so it was very quick, and it took like 2 minutes. I mean, not even 2 minutes. It just took a quick conversation and then started spitting out exactly. It gave me comps of that neighborhood right away, and they were accurate. They were some of the same ones we had already had. And Angie's been doing this for a really long time. She's great at running comps, but this thing spit out very similar information, and it was like that. It took no time at all. And I just had a conversation with my phone, and it just did it, and it spit it right back to me. And I was super prepared for the meeting. And we got all the information just like that. I did it again this morning. I walked around a property that I was looking at, and I have to go inspect them and make sure. And I was just reading into my phone, my gibberish, you know, in my brain. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to need to come in here and we're going to need to fix this. We need to come in and do gutters, and there's some wood rot here. And I'm going to probably have to have the carpet cleaned, and I'm going to have this person do that. And so I had these random mishmash of notes that I had in my in my notes section, and I just read it to myself. I copied and pasted that, put it into ChatGPT, and I said, organize my notes. And it put it in just like the most easy to read fashion and perfectly laid out, and then I connected my team to it, and I connected all the photos that I took to it, the seller information sheet and all the documents I had, and I compiled it. In about 3 minutes, I had a really comprehensive looking, organized set of thoughts, and I sent it out to everybody that needed it, and it happened so quick. And Angie went back and she was like, "When did you become so professional?" And she was just like, "You're speaking my love language, brother. We're organized now." And I was like, "I didn't do it. It was Chat. ChatGPT did it for me." And so again, it was amazing. It worked great. Oh,
Yep.
again.
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted?
Yeah. Andy was telling me too that he just talks to ChatGPT in his car, like he has random thoughts and things, and they just talk to each other.
You know what's actually really funny with ChatGPT? Asking me like, hey, can I have some encouragement and see what it says?
Oh, wow.
That's
It
amazing.
was really surprising because it shot back something that was it just was profound, and I was like, wow, and I even typed in thank you. And it responded, it was like, anytime, if you need more encouragement, just let me. I was like.
You also know like your personality and like what you're interested in, so with, it knows for me, sneakerhead, my dogs, I cook Pilates, and it always just like generates everything, so I can just send out emails.
So
So
cool.
it's-
Okay, then we've always talked about TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. That's what the room here is for. If you can do it on your phone and everywhere, but if you want to make some more, video content, we should have that up and running in a week or so. Local expertise. This is why we're called Local Pro. Like, I'm so passionate about this hyper local knowledge and community involvement. Have y'all seen the reel or video of somebody that walks around and is like, "Hey, yeah, what are you renting for? Would you show me your apartment?" That. And then there's another one that interviews like wealthy people, and he's like, I walk around interviewing wealthy people, and were you ever poor? And what's your best advice to give someone? So I was like, why don't we do that in real estate? Like, I could be around TJ Maxx and be like, "Hey, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? What community do you live in?" I do interviews about the communities around the Metroplex and say, what do you like best about living in Flower Mound? And what's your favorite restaurant when you go out to eat? And what would you tell somebody that wanted to move this area about Flower Mound? And then just do like a couple little quick little things like that. I'm like, I could do that all day. Just talk to people about what they like. So I don't know, short videos, local, hyper local expertise is where it's at, y'all. And use ChatGPT to cheat, just like Kevin did when he was going to an area that he wasn't super familiar with. And sustainable and smart homes. Buyers prioritize energy efficiency and tech integrated homes now. You'll see that with new construction. They'll say like this is a green thing, and all the tools that they have now with that. Solar is becoming bigger and bigger. And then off-market and exclusive listings. Sometimes you might have private deals that you know of that people are about to go on the market, but they're not ready to go on the market, or they just want to keep it off market because they don't want a whole lot of like people knowing that their house is for sale, whatever it is. Client-centric experiences, concierge services, white glove treatment, and seamless transactions. We've been talking about that since day one. Concierge services. Creative financing knowledge. That's where Chuck comes in. Understand how does seller financing work if it does? Are there any options beyond seller financing that they might be able to qualify for? And if they are going to do seller financing, what attorneys are you using to stay in the loop with what all is happening with that transaction? Because you're going to need somebody on your side to do some paperwork. And the title companies all have great attorneys. So use Community National's attorney, use whatever title company's attorney to help you work through that process. Assumable mortgages, if you don't know what that is, then it's some FHA and VA loans are assumable. Tammy Runyon is actually a VA assumable mortgage specialist, basically. So if you have questions about how that works, or you call Chuck and he can tell you how that works. It's not just, oh, great, I get an assumable loan. They still have to apply. They still have to go through some processes, but it's actually very, it's attractive because their loan amount stays at the rate that loan is. So if the loan amount today is 7, that loan might be 4. So it might be in their best interest to assume the loan that was already there, but then they would have to come up with the difference between what loan amount and what the sales price is. And that's where you can kind of figure that out.
It actually took about, I think they started the process in May and we closed in September. So just a heads up. I haven't heard of any moving faster than 90 days. They have to qualify with the current mortgage holder, obviously that's the one that's carrying the lead, so they'll have to, whoever that mortgage servicer is on the current existing, the clients will have to call them and apply, and there's a whole process they have to go through. But it worked at a 2.25% rate, it did not go to waste, and it got to go to another veteran.
The next one is what's out. Cold calling and mass mailers. Yay. I mean, I'm excited about that, but you still have to call your sphere. You still need to have conversations with people that you know. You still need to call your leads. You still need to do that sort of thing. But the mass mailers, a lot of people aren't doing those postcards anymore, but I think that's a good time to do postcards when not many people are doing them. But the other one is one size fits all social media. I hate to say it, but like those one size fits all doesn't work. So we want it to be customized to you as much as you can, but you want it to be personal and engaging. And then ignoring AI and tech, that you're going to fall behind the scene. In a year from now, who knows what we're going to be talking about and how we're going to be doing real estate, but it's moving really fast. So don't ignore it. And it's not hard. Just do what Kevin does and just play with ChatGPT as a starter. And there's probably hundreds of AI programs that are available now. Some help you do pictures, some do like you can do redo of rooms, but ChatGPT is free. So that's where you can kind of get started using some tools. Overpricing your listings, that's always been out. So we don't want to do that. Neglecting follow-ups, automated and personalized follow-ups are so crucial. And underestimating first-time home buyers. Millennials and Gen Z are entering the market with different expectations. So just know that and know that they're going to want to communicate through different messaging than you might be used to. Like they're probably not going to call you. They're probably going to text you or snap you or do something different than you pick up the phone and leave a voicemail. So what do y'all think about that list? Are there any other outs that you have or ins that you have that are not on the list? The next one, we want to talk about how to be a concierge. So we kind of went through the seller concierge and the buyer concierge. And I just wanted to go through each one and get an idea of what you can do at each of these steps to help each other, or what do you do? So for a seller, what do you do for lead generation to market yourself to sellers? So there's 100 different ways to lead generate. We talk about that all the time, but it's number one on the list for sellers and for buyers. Lead generation is the number one job you have, because if you don't have any buyers or sellers, the only thing you need to do is lead generate. And that's what you do every day when you get up. Go out and meet somebody at TJ Maxx and ask them about the community. That's lead generating.
You also have to revisit how you're lead generating. You know, discovering your niche is probably the hardest part about being an independent contractor, about being a realtor, you know, but there's like Tricia just said, there's so many different, there's no wrong way to generate a lead. And however, you do have to be intentional. I love the 10-step program. And I think everything is about, I mean, that's why Tricia's putting this up here. We wanted to talk about, do you have steps in play? What are my steps in play for working the expired? If I'm going to work the expireds over the next 90 days, what are my 10 steps? You know, if I'm going to be farming the next 90 days, what are my 10 steps? If I'm going to door knock, what are my 10 steps? You know, all of it requires steps, and you want to revisit it. The sphere, your database, I'm telling you, I promise you, that's the most critical thing. When I visit and evaluate an agent who is successful versus the agent who is not as very successful, the agent who is successful is the one that focuses in on having a quality database. So that's never going to change. But then challenge yourself, revisit other things. And that's why we love having the agent panels. We love hearing from you and sharing, what are you doing to be successful? Because we hope those ideas will stimulate you and encourage you. You know what? I'm going to try that for 90 days and see how it works.
Yep. So during the preview, what do you do what's the preview, Robert? Just give us a quick overview of what you mean by preview.
So Dallas, we are in a very broad market. A lot of markets across the country, they're not quite as spread out as we are. I mean, Dallas, Fort Worth, I mean, honestly, look at Netris. Everything that Netris touches, you can touch. And that's a pretty big area. So maybe you need to be in Waco one day and then Waxahachie the next day, or Mineral Wells, or, I mean, Greenville. You know, this is a broad market. And so my point is, you have an obligation to demonstrate your expertise. And if I'm gonna do a presentation for somebody in my market, and maybe I've never sold a house there, maybe I've never seen a house in that market, I encourage you to really commit to investing more time and energy to the preview. The best thing you can do for yourself, get familiar with the community, besides running the market analysis, set a preview appointment and go visit some listings in the area. Go visit some of the builders in the area. Talk to them about the trends that are going on and see, you know, when I sold real estate full time, actually every listing process that I would do, and this was my SOP, my standard operating procedures, I really tried to have 2 appointments for every listing. I wanted to have the preview appointment, which gave me an opportunity to see the house. I wanted to walk through the house with the seller. I wanted them to sell me on the house. I want to know, what is it that you like about the house? What did you fall in love? Because those things are the things that I want to make sure and integrate into my marketing. So that way, because most likely that's also going to appeal to the next buyer, and sellers are just so elevated with that, you know? And do you have any input or guidance that you'd like me to make sure and include in my marketing and advice? Oh my gosh, there's some sellers that are pulling out those photos. Oh my gosh, this is when my house looks so pretty with the flowers and this is, matter of fact, I actually wrote a write-up that describes my house. I know it's 17 pages, but you know, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to use portions of this and focus in on the highlights, but sellers want to engage with you. They want to partner with you. And so invest time and energy into previewing. And really, I love the way Kevin put it when he talked about his confidence when he arrived at that appointment, just simply by having a conversation with ChatGPT. He felt, and he wasn't walking out of there without a contract or without an agreement. I mean, it wasn't going to be a done deal. You know, when your confidence is elevated, I promise, how can you elevate your confidence? Invest in free.
Okay, so the next one on the list is the listing consultation, not presentation. And what I mean by that is they want us to change the words from presentation to consultation. It's not about you. It's what is their needs? How do you uncover what is important to that client? And so during the listing consultation, what is something that you all do to set yourself apart? Like, obviously, Robert is very good at like getting to know and building the rapport really quickly, but is there anything specific that you do at a listing consultation? Something that you bring, something that you say? Let's share those ideas.
I like to ask, what's most important to you about having success in this real estate transaction? And don't be afraid to also ask, what are you most afraid of about getting your home sold? You know, and trying to uncover those things that they like and that they're looking forward to and that they're not looking forward to. Well, you know, the last time I hired a realtor, I never got them to communicate with me. What's the number one thing I'm going to do on my priority list in doing business with you? Well, that's what separates me from everyone else. The number one thing I'm going to do is communicate with you every single week. Matter of fact, I like to reach out to my sellers every Monday between 10 and 12. Would that be okay? Or would you prefer an afternoon call? You know, not only am I reinforcing what's important to you, but I'm also letting them know I'm committed to doing this, and I'm closing also, you know.
What do you take with you? Yes.
Well, I just did one the other day and the stuff that's on MLS, RPR, I use ChatGPT because he mentioned it last week. And it's gonna be a Lantana listing, which taxes are quite a bit higher. So I had to even pull comps and show him how many days things are sitting on the market in that area. So I could prepare him that it might be a little bit in that price range and that area that things don't move as quickly. So I use a lot of stuff that's on that.
Awesome.
RPR gets me really
RPR.
excited. I know Tanya gets really excited too. We exchange ideas. You know, yesterday at the foreclosure workshop, we had, I don't know, 20, 25 folks there. And I brought up RPR and I said, can I see by a show of hands of who's using RPR? Not one person raised their hand. I'm like, well, there's our next class.
That breaks my little realtor heart.
I know, me too. RPR is gold.
What I like to do for sellers is I'm coming to help them sell their home. So they're coming from the seller perspective, but I want them to hear from a buyer's perspective. They need to know what a buyer's perspective on their home would look at from the beginning of the drive up curb appeal and all the way through. And one of the other things that I always, and this, it's just a script that I've used years and years, and it helps so much. Cause they tell you all their stories about their home and they're incredible stories. That's the beautiful part. But I tell them I have to take your home and turn it into a product. You're gonna be hiring me to sell a product. And that is like the light bulb goes off for sellers that way. Oh, and then that's where staging comes into it. It's not decorating, it's staging. Because I have to make sure those pictures, people scroll past the second picture. So there's just a lot of verbiage like that that helps you get the sellers ready for, they think their property is incredible, which they all do. But I've got to get it where it hits the average buyer for this product. Because that's how sales works. We don't do the extremes. We're hitting right in the middle of the average buyer that wants to buy this product at this location.
I love that. I'm trying to attract this many buyers. How many? This many. You know, I love that. I love that. You know, I've been on appointments where, you know, telling somebody that they're wrong is not always the best approach for the salesperson. You know, you're an idiot, you're wrong. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to come out. Sometimes we have to demonstrate because it's always better when it's their idea. I've been on listing appointments and you're right, Allison. Oh my gosh, this sexy bamboo wallpaper, we put it in 1972 and it's just gorgeous. And the brass, I love that I can see my reflection on every single brass fixture in the home. You know what we need to do? How about there's a couple of vacant homes in your community that are up for sale. Do you have a few minutes that we could just hop in my car and let's go pop by and visit some of those? And when they walk in, you take them out of the element of my domain, this is my home, and I'm proud. My family, I raised my family. I'm proud of everything that happened here. That's great. Me too. But you want the most amount of money for your home, right? That is why you want me here. That's why you want this consultation. Hop in my car. Let's go check out and see what the competition is doing. And when they walk in, they go, oh, wow. Huh? So wallpaper's out, huh? Oh, wow. Look at these pretty countertops. Yeah, I know. Ceramic tile doesn't work anymore. Granite. Yay.
Yay.
You know, imagine we can even paint the cabinet. Look at that. All they did was paint the cabinets. Oh my gosh, it looks like a totally contemporary home. I'm like, you're right. Do you think that we should try this in yours? I think we should do it. You're so right.
Yeah, and don't tell them what the price of that is whenever you go in, and then ask them what they think about.
Oh,
And then they're gonna really understand, oh, okay, well, maybe am I unrealistic about what my expectations are? And that in this consultation too, having a conversation, we're gonna get hit this a lot, and I get it every single day about the buyer agent commission. Are we paying it as the listing or not? And why is that important to our marketing efforts? So if you're starting to talk about this and say, okay, don't think about this 3% as that is an expense. We're looking to make money, not save money, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make money here. And what that 3% is a marketing fee, what we're paying. And we're also saving money for those buyers. And so this big pool of buyers that we have right now, and we're all doing all this marketing to get all these people in the door. And by taking away that 3%, you can cut that pool in half of potential buyers. So that's what you're buying, or you're actually trading it. You're trading that 3% for potential higher purchase price that could eclipse that 3% that you're paying right now. So we're just trading it right now. We're offering that 3% in hopes that we're going to gain it back plus some, because we've got a bigger buyer pool and hopefully they'll drive that price up. And so that's what we're doing with that 3% conversation. That's what you really need to do at the listing consultation to make sure that your clients understand the importance of offering that 3% buyer's agent commission.
Those
Ah,
are great
well,
scripts. That is all
beautiful presentation.
you should be recording when you
That
hear
is
experienced
beautiful.
agent. Use that script verbatim, guys. Everything he said is just a script and it's perfect for sellers, especially as we're getting into this new real estate industry with all the changes. Amazing.
Most sellers that I have, I'm going to help them buy a home as well. And that 3% fee challenge, that has really come in handy, like you demonstrated there, Kevin, because, you know, well, this is the 3% is part of actually my marketing. It's what's going to attract more agents. How many? This many more agents than this many agents. And so we want to get them in the door. The more butts we get in the door, the greater the opportunity we have for an offer. Now, when I help you buy your home, that's why I'm encouraging you, the seller who doesn't want to pay the buyer agent fee. That's why I'm encouraging you, let's include that 3% fee in the marketing that we're going to be doing. When I help you find your home, are you gonna want to pay my fee, or should we put that on the seller side? Oh, I'm not paying your fee, the seller's gonna pay your, oh, so it works there, but not here. But I mean, obviously, we're not telling them they're wrong. We're just gonna revisit the strategy and have them realize it's their idea. You know what we should do? Let's offer 4%. That's a great idea. We'll get more. I can't even reach my hand that far. Will you stand on that side and I'll stand over here? We'll get this many buyers.
Yeah.
Yes, miss.
ChatGPT just asked in 2024, what were the losses for FSBO deals while not using agents at all? And it's like a $60,000 price difference, so 12.6% by not having an agent.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy. And then they're arguing about the 6 and the 30.
Right. Yep. So the first thing that they're going to do before they even meet with you is Google you. So have you Googled yourself lately? You should do that.
Yeah.
And if you're, Google yourself and make sure that your self is showing up professional, because they want to look at, like, I look at everybody, but they're like, oh, we have an agent that wants to interview. And I'm like, okay, what's their full name? I don't see them on Facebook. Let me check Instagram. And we just want to see what that person is all about. And that's the world we're in right now. So make sure all of that stuff is up to date on
Critical
that.
advice. And make sure when you Google yourself, just schedule your time, a little bit of time in the evening, a little fireplace going, glass of wine.
Yeah,
So-
be ready.
And then click on all the tabs at the top, because you don't want to click on that images and it's that video maybe that,
Yeah.
Cabo and you're going. I've had to hide some of those too. You just add more videos and then all of a sudden they go to page 3 or 4 and nobody will go.
Yeah.
They won't go to page 3 or 4.
I think I'm a dentist in Michigan. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, and then on your listing consultation, there's beautiful marketing materials that you have on the hub. Vanessa can make something if you would require her to customize something for you, but there's a bunch of materials. You want to leave them with something. It drives me nuts if you go to a listing appointment and you just have a CMA and that's it. And especially if it's a CMA that's just a one-liner printout thing. Like, that is so not professional. You need to take your marketing materials, take your consultation booklet, and it guides you on what to say. It makes the consultation so much easier. And then when you do a market analysis, there's a cloud CMA that creates beautiful ones, and you can even put them online. So how cool would it be when you're sitting down? It's like, oh, let me just open up my computer, and then I've created a market analysis on your home at this site, and you just link it, and then it shows all the things, and it's all professional done for you, and it takes 2 seconds. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, then get with someone, or let's mastermind these things and show you how to do it, because it sounds hard and it's so not.
There should be 2 files for every listing appointment. The realtor file that has all your content, all your data, everything that you're looking into, and then the leave behind presentation. And that presentation needs to leave behind with the client and or the prospect the relevant data for them to make the appropriate decision. Specific. I want to show them 3 actives and 3 solds on the leave behind. My file, if there's 20 recent solds in the area, I have the information about all 20 solds in my file. Inevitably, they might talk about it. Well, Bob up here told me he sold his house for $100,000 over list price. My house is better than him. And so, well, let's pull up Bob's. And maybe it's not part of the leave behind, but I have it in my file. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So do your due diligence.
Yep. So that gets us into the setup and make ready. And what Kevin was saying, like we might need to clean the carpets, might need to do this. And that's what Allison was saying about staging and getting the property right. Does anybody have any suggestions on that? Like, what are the things that you look for the make ready? And obviously photos are number one. We want to make sure the house is ready for photos.
You want to make sure you're analyzing with the property that you are at, the ideas and consultation of what they should do based on what you are presently seeing and what they've discussed their finances are. Okay. The biggest mistake when Granite, this is years ago, when Granite started being popular, agents were going in and saying, we just need to put in granite and it'll sell your home. Well, then nothing else was remodeled. Don't be those agents that, well, if you just do these couple things, we're gonna get top dollar. You've got to know what's on trend. You've got to know what it costs. You've got to know how much is it to redo, sorry, it's not granite, it's quartz now. You got to know what's on trend. So, but if the property is in a location and over improving it is a waste of that seller's money, that is terrible to do to people and consumers. Okay, so you've really got to know what is the strategy for that particular location in the present condition of the home that matches what the seller can do financially.
Perfect. So if you're not comfortable having the staging conversation, get someone else or get a stager and then blame it on the stager. I'm going to hire my stager. She's going to come out and she's going to give you suggestions. There are several different ways that you can do this. We can use your furniture. We can move your furniture in, but that's just part of the consultation is, are you willing to go ahead and start putting some things in boxes? Because we need this to look kind of like a hotel room, and all of the pictures on the walls are probably going to need to go in a box so that we want to make sure that we can stage it properly. But
Less is more.
yes.
Less is more, and certainly very appealing, walking them through the home, staging up, getting them to realize, if you're walking through the home and you have a question mark, I love the way Tricia put it there, that you don't know, does this look right or whatever, snap a photo of it and then bring it back to the office and let's table it. Let's chat about it.
I want to share, a while back, Robert, presented at a different office location, how he had hired, he had a stager who would come in and he would offer his clients, I'll pay for this much of your staging. And he had worked out a situation with that stager, so he would pay the consult fee or whatever, and so that feels like a gift. I'm gonna gift you that, so that like kind of endears you to the client already. And then you get third party, like very objective, someone who's on trend, who knows the market. So, I thought that was great advice that he offered that, and he said, here's money, you can use the stager you want. But I know someone and
That's perfect for that seller client also that's refusing to accept that their outdated materials is super cool. Let's get a third party. Okay, if you don't believe me, how about we do a third party hand out that responsibility to somebody else? They must be smarter than me.
And we do have listing classes and we do have buyer classes. So I don't want to go into like the whole specifics of that, but the idea is, what is a concierge? What can you do beyond being a sales professional? How can you help these clients? So at each of these stages, what's the education? What are you providing them with maybe you have the data, maybe you have a course that you've gotten or recorded off of YouTube, or maybe you're providing them with things that can educate the seller. Maybe that's part of your concierge services. Marketing, advertising, and farm campaign. Now you've got the listing, now it's time to market it. What is your concierge services for that listing? Not just putting a flyer on or uploading it to the MLS and putting a sign in the yard. If you think that that's marketing, then we are way off, because you have to do so much more for the whole entire property these days. And Lofty makes it really easy for you to do that, but you need to communicate that with your clients. Somebody said, well, I don't want to use that realtor because she doesn't list my house on Zillow. And I was like, what? They just didn't know that they do list the house on Zillow. Like, the realtor did not convey that information to the client. So part of your concierge services is, I'm going to put your house on every single website where you can search for homes. Your house is going to be there. Zillow, realtor.com, homes.com. Tell them that, because they don't know that that's automatic, that we have at Local Pro, we have something called a List Hub that distributes that to everywhere for you. Yeah. So they just don't know that information. So that's something that you need to put in your marketing concierge services.
Put your listing in front of this many buyers. I think, maybe getting the face-to-face time with your client, especially the seller, is critical. I love the preview appointment. I love the consult appointment. I love the forget what the other appointment was after that. Oh, the make ready, setup appointment. And then the seller training day. I let them know, you know what, there's another appointment. It's called the seller training day that I like to do with my client. And it's gonna be just about 30 minutes. I just wanna come by. And what I wanna do is I wanna walk through each and every room of the home with you as if we just got a showing appointment. And I want, or before you leave for the day, how you need to make sure and leave the home. What lights I want on, what doors I want left slightly ajar, because you wanna leave those closet doors slightly ajar so people feel comfortable being, oh, can I look in their closet? It's ajar, so it's open, so I can open it up. I want the blinds tilted slightly upwards. That way, when the sunlight comes in, it beams off the ceiling and it makes it look open and bright. You know, I want the smells to be right. I want the look to be right. I want the napkins to be right. I want the underwear off the floor. I want the dishes out of the sink. You know, and you train them and go through there and get them to imagine that house. This is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get that buyer to fall in love with your home, and we only have 15 minutes to do it. You know, it's hard to impress people in 10 minutes, let alone 15 minutes. And not to mention, they're going to be looking at other houses today, and we want to stand out. That is what we want to do, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, you go through the offer, the negotiations, the contract to close, the closing, the relationship enhancements. Let's call it relationship enhancements. Or if you have a better word, then I'll use that. But let's stop calling it follow-up. I know that's what we're like ingrained to say. It's like, have you followed up with that person? Have you followed up with that person? But we can talk about that, but the way you talk about it is you need to enhance the relationship. And when you close, that's the beginning of the relationship. You've just went through this big thing and you made it through the closing table, and now you've closed, and then that's when it drops off. You just did all this work, you built all this trust, you had all this communication, and then now and then in a year from now, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I really liked our realtor, but I can't remember what their name was. Well, that's the problem. The problem is the gap that we don't fill by enhancing the relationship. So ways to do that for your concierge is reach out to them a month after closing, 2 months after closing, 4 months after closing, throughout the year, and say, do you need any recommendations for a lawn guy? Do you need any recommendations for a cleaning crew? Do you need any recommendations on electricity? Because we have, different electricity companies that you can get stuff for, like whatever that has to do with the living or a house situation, you're the concierge of that. So the close should be the day one of your relationship enhancement plan that you have for these people. And then 1, 3 to 5 years down the road, they're going to move again. And if you've enhanced their relationship, they're going to call you back. Dawn is a great relationship builder. She remembers everything about every single person, and she is great at building that relationship. They remember her, and now most of your business is referrals, isn't it? That's all it is. So great. Love it.
I
Okay.
do that for consumers all the time, about how they fell in love with their agent, and it is about relationship building, right? We're building this relationship with them, rain, sleet, or snow. We're looking at houses, or we're going through the showing process, or we're trying to negotiate offers, and we're spending months together, and then all of a sudden we disappear. And that's what they call, I hear it often when they say, I don't want a one and done agent. Like a person who's just going to show up, befriend me, get a sale, and then disappear. And it's about that relationship. Don't just leave them at the closing table. I think, instead of worrying about a closing gift at the closing table, show up 3 days after closing at their house with the closing gift, something special for them in their home, and then about a week later, I'm going to pop in again. Hey guys, how's everything going? You feeling pretty settled in? Is there anything you need? You have any questions about anything? That face to face, I'm like, there's my guy again. Look at he won't stop. No, I'm a machine.
Yeah.
Oh, then a month later, and then not only are you going to get the repeat business, you're going to earn referrals all along the way.
And that's how this game works. So go through the same thing with the buyers. It's the same things that you want to think about each of these steps and create your concierge experience for your clients. And once we do that and we kind of get in that frame of mind, you're not selling a widget. You're not selling a one and done. You are building a relationship. That's why we call them clients for life. So let's change our mindset from a salesperson to a concierge from now on.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Tricia, you actually alluded to this earlier, the contract to close process. I think I know you guys are connecting with the inspectors, you're connecting with the agent, you're connecting with the title company, you're doing all those steps, but the contingency timelines of the contract, I think is also an opportunity for us to elevate our relationship with our clients. I think that everybody needs to have a list of all the contingencies that you negotiated in the contract, and a personal phone call and or face-to-face should happen the day before each and every contingency. Hey, guys, I know we have the inspection, Tomorrow's the end of our option period at 5 o'clock. I just want to remind you of that contingency. I want to see if you guys have any concerns, anything that we should address before that time. I'm not saying we should terminate. I'm just, don't panic, don't freeze. But is there some, they're going, oh my gosh, I forgot about that contingent. And then we have the objections paragraph. When they get the title policy, we negotiated time period for the objections. Hey, guys, I want to let you know, you guys got your title docs in, you got your HOA docs in, you got the survey, and our contingency expires in 24 hours on that. I just wanted to see if you had any objections, concerns, or issues that we needed to address together. They're just going, what? The third-party financing, the property inspection contingency expires in 3 days, or tomorrow. And I just want to see that you guys are satisfied with the appraisal, that we have everything together. Is there anything that we need to address? Having them shop around for insurance. I know Garrison was just here, but, insurance is also a huge part of getting ready. You should shop around for your insurance. You should try to bundle your plan. Now I feel like I'm doing one of those J commercials, or whatever the bundles are for insurance. You should try to bundle your insurance. You're going to get a better deal. And let me ask you to please insist on getting a clue report from your insurance agent. And if you don't get a clue report from your insurance agent, you should find a new insurance agent. The reason they don't want to provide it to you is because it costs money. They're not willing to invest in you. Why are you going to spend money on them? What we want to do is we want to take that clue report. We want to cross-reference it with the seller's disclosure. Trust but verify.
Because you shouldn't have it on the whiteboard, how you keep track of it for each client on your whiteboard, because that's how you lose earnest money. Is not keeping up with your time is of the essence in each contract. And sometimes those dates are amended. You got to go back to your whiteboard and change the dates. That's how you can really get a complaint to track faster than anything, is that you keep losing clients' earnest money.
All right.
A big whiteboard person. My wife hated me when we were selling real estate full time. I had whiteboards everywhere, names and numbers and like I want something pretty on the wall. No, I need more whiteboards.
Okay, so we're about out of time. Does anyone have any questions or comments on what we talked about today? Yes.
When you're on social media and you're talking to your people, right? We need to remember that sometimes some of the terms we use are really internal speak, right? So we don't want to say things like my farm. Because
Right.
no one wants to sell like cattle, right? So they don't want to think you're farming me. Is that what I am? So make sure that you're using the right terms that you want your clients to hear, so that you can, so that they feel good when they see that. They don't think, what does she mean by that?
Great
Now they're
point.
thinking about the wrong thing. They're not thinking about, he's reaching out, she's doing this, or he's doing that, or whatever. So
Right.
just a thought that some things are just internal to the business and some things are client facing.
That is a great point,
It
because they
is.
don't know what a CMA is.
No.
That's an award show,
No. Or MLS. Major League
MLS.
Soccer, what does that have to do with, my selling my house? I mean,
right?
dumb it down. It's not like this is rocket science and nobody can't figure out how to be successful in real estate. But you're the consultant, be the consultant, be the guide.
Anyone else?
Points, tips?
Yeah.
So I recently went to the economic forecast with Old Republic. I shared all my notes on Slack and Facebook. But one of the speakers that they had there was Lee Brown. And if you're not familiar with him or with her, sorry, go follow her on Instagram. She's awesome. She's a broker in South Carolina or something like that. But one of the things that she talked about was like video. And everybody is always like, they want to do video, but then they get really scared to do video because people say like, oh, I'm too fat, or I'm too ugly, or I'm too old, or whatever the case may be. We all have those internal voices in our head. But the thing that she said that really stuck with me was that, she's like, there is nobody who, like, there's no seller or buyer that says, or especially sellers, there's no seller who ever said, oh my gosh, that agent gave a great seller's consultation, but they're old, fat and ugly, so I don't want to. So we just have to remember that when we're in our videos and things, that's who you are.
Yeah.
You know, you're not old, fat and ugly, you just think that in your head. So you need to change that mindset. And then the last thing she said was, or one of the things she said was, you know, especially with video, you have to let people into your life because that's the best way to be authentic.
Yeah, love it.
I know lots of you
Great.
have videos, like Rachel was talking about. She shot videos and pictures of whatever that open house that she was doing, and Tessa did the video, but Rachel didn't do the video. But my point is, even in your phones, even though it's photos or experiences that you had in the past, you can actually still use that to create some more content. All of it is content creation. You just need to splash some words and some text on there that make it more relevant and current.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.